Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So what I'm gonna do today, I'll talk about another topic which is a part of UX research basics. That's to collect your data. Now, in the last episode, I spoke about asking the right questions. Right now, that's great because so far we have seen, how to interact with the user and how to ask the right question, right? Now that's great from a UX starting perspective, but it's very important that you need to build your interview and observation skills, because obviously having a right question is not enough, right? Because you need to make sure the people you're interacting with or the people you're going to ask the questions, you obviously uh, need to make sure you get what is really expected to get out of the interview, right? I mean, for instance, if your whole point of interview is to get information about the user daily working routine, you need to frame your questions, or you need to conduct your interview in such a way that you get that information from the user, right? And so the key to that is, right, whenever you want to get any information from the user, you need to make sure you take user permission, and second, you need to make sure that the user is comfortable with that stuff, right? You can't just barge in and disrupt their privacy and start asking questions, right? People won't like it. Even personally, if someone does that to me, I will tell that person to f off. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, because they, first of all, they never took my permission. Second, they're disturbing my daily work, and the third, I have a privacy concern sharing the details with a person who never took an approval before, right? So that's one of the reasons why it's important that you request that boundary. So I'm not going to talk about this stuff using a slide, right? Because you might be thinking, why I'm not making a slide. The reason behind is, right, the slides are useful when you have information all over the place and you want to present all the stuff at one place. And another thing, second, when you don't have information, right? When you're telling stuff from your own experience, you wanted to add different stuff to it, then obviously, I think it's better to have a slide. But in this case, everything is there already on the trailhead, so I don't really see the need of duplicating this stuff. And another thing I just wanted to mention, that this certification, right? This is really, really great. Really started to enjoy this one more than any other cert I've done before. The reason being, the first of all, this is a very generic cert, right? You don't really need to be a Salesforce expert to do this. You can use this knowledge, whatever you learn from this cert, to a different technology you're going to work on tomorrow. So this is really, really one of my favorite certs, turning out to be one of my favorite certs. So yeah, let's start the journey now. So when you talk about collecting your data, right, building your interview observation skills, you need to pay attention to a few things, right? Things to observe, questions to ask. If you need to carry the video and audio recorder, pen and paper, small thank you gift, right? So it's a nice researcher, nice looking researcher. What's it called? Image or a cartoon, what do we call, right? Everything, I like cartoony stuff, right? Because it's easy to explain, easy to convey the message, right? So the nice cartoon of a human being, one call it as a humanoid. You could, right? But either way, I don't want to digress the conversation. So a researcher, say for instance, the name of a researcher is XYZ, right? Why not XYZ123, right? Let's do something unconventional. XYZ123, the name of a researcher, wants to gather information from a user, right? So the XYZ 123 carried a checklist, right? Now the person XYZ, right, whom this researcher going to interview, um, ha- has known to be a bit grumpy, or a bit non-reactive to certain questions, right? So the researcher has to be mindful of certain things before approaching that person, or even engaging in a conversation with that person, right? So the few things researchers have sorted out, researchers got the approval, pre-approval from the manager. The manager said you can go ahead and spend time with the person. And the second thing is that if the researcher there, she got approval from the person the researcher going to interview um, with respect to the questions researcher can ask, and the manager has approved that. So there's no question around, you know, leaking out the privacy of a company. So that's been taken care of. So the researchers has done the job quite well. The pre-approval stuff, that's all been taken care, right? Now, the few things researchers needs to be aware of. So uh, so the first of all, you need to be positive, right? At times, like I said, the person, the researcher going to interview is known to be grumpy, right? Needs to be positive, needs to stay focused with the right questions. Researchers should not be digressing from the questions, right? That's got approved. And also, the researcher has to be remember that researcher is not a participant. So it's not about the researcher. It's a researcher in the sense the person who's asking the question, right? So XYZ, right? It's not about XYZ researcher, right? It's about the user. It's about the participant, what the user wants. You cannot squeeze in your opinion or your suggestion. It's not about that. It's about what the person is really up to, or what the person really thinks is the pain point. You cannot suggest, you cannot ask, you cannot give your suggestion in this case, because you're there to gather the data. You're not there to influence the data, right? You're there to collect the information. So you need to stick to that. And also, you should resist the urge to train, right? What that means is that you should not be telling, oh, no, I don't think so. What you're doing is correct. I think you should be doing this. Instead of this, you should be doing it a different way. Absolutely not. You're there to collect the data. You're there to observe what the user is doing. And based on that, you can frame your opinion later, right? But at that stage, you stop your urge to tell the user what is good, what is bad, right? You might think what is this thing might be good for the user, but the user might have a different perspective towards it, right? The user think, I think this is what exactly I wanted to do, and this is what I'm comfortable with, right? So some user might be resistant to change. So you need to vary of that, right? So you're not here there to provide your opinion or suggestion. You're just there to collect the information, right? Ask the right question. That's pretty much it. And also, you need to watch the body language of the person, right? Sometimes researcher, sometimes the user participant, right, may not be comfortable telling the truth because they might think, okay, what if I tell the truth? What happened if my boss finds out that, right? Because in some of the companies, right, unfortunate reality is that the voice of the most passionate people are shut down because of incompetent management they have at the top, right? And that freaks incompetent managers out because that's the reason why they're in the position, because of the incompetency. let's be let's be very honest, right? And now that's a different topic for discussion, right? I have at least tolerance for incompetence in my personal life, right? Because in my company, if I find out, I follow Elon Musk style of policies. If you can't figure out your work, you go and work somewhere else. No ifs and buts, right? You're given three chances to improve, four chance you're out. That's the New Zealand law works, right? I strictly follow New Zealand law, right? There is no uh, other stuff, right? Person can't perform it. I need to explain to my board why the person can't perform it. If the board says let the person go, I'll let the person go because I'm not in a business to make friends. I'm in a business to make money. That's how it works. And of course, to appreciate the right talent. If the person can't perform, they can go somewhere else. So that's one of the approach most of the companies don't follow. When they don't do that, employees are now very hesitant to, tell the real reason why the things are not going well, right? So you need to watch the body language for that, right? You can figure out the uncomfortable, uncertain sign from the body language. So pay attention to that. It's very important, right? Sometimes silence can give a lot of information, right? Silence can be your data. You can figure out lots of information from the silence, right? and be flexible. Sometimes what happens, right? You go to, you might grab. So what happens is that, let me tell you an example. You might book 30 minutes for that interview, and you might decide to, video record that meeting, right? But unfortunately, sometimes the battery can run out, or your camera might run out of the charge. So you might have to factor that, right? So be flexible. Right. So that's, and another thing I just wanted to mention, right? You might want to shadow the person, right? Uh, because if your whole intention to understand the daily working style of the person, you might need to shadow it. But the way you shadow that person, it could vary, right? You can't really go and sit next to the person and look at the face. I mean, to be honest, I'll be very uncomfortable, right? Nobody likes when they are being watched, right? It's not really great. I'll be very honest. Most people will say no to it straight away because they think that it's like a invasion of the privacy. So you need to approach it in a very careful manner, right? You need to make it sound like you're here for partnership. You're not for judging. You're there to help them. You just wanted to observe their daily work, and you're there. You're flexible. If you think that a certain time they don't want you around, respect that, right? And certain times they say, okay, you can come and sit next to me and do what I'm doing. That's fine. You should not question that, right? Because it's someone else's work time, right? You need to respect that. And some people, I hate it when some people don't respect someone private, unless that person is your close mate. And even then, right, when you are in a workspace, you need to respect the boundary. It doesn't matter if it's your friend or family member. If you're at work, you're there to work. You're not there to muck around, right? You're just there, hardcore work. So you need to respect the boundaries, respect the time, every other relationship outside the door, right? So that's how you show your professionalism, right? Otherwise, you're gonna make both people uncomfortable, right? For yourself as well as the person you are interviewing. So it's very important that you respect the time, right? And some person say, hey, I don't want you to be shadowing me from say this time to this time because it's my lunchtime, or I don't want you anywhere near me. All right, respect that. Say thank you, right? And then whenever that person thinks it's comfortable, work with them. That's You need to be flexible, right? And you need to focus on the end result, right? Not on the journey, right? You need to focus on what exactly you wanted to get out of this meeting, what data you wanted to collect, and what exactly you're going to do with the data later. Okay, that's important. And this is I've already covered, right? Quiet space, right? You can't really, at times, you can't really go and sit next to the person and start asking questions, right? Because the problem with that, other people around you might get disturbed, right? Because some people do not like any kind of disturbance or talk when they're working, right? And you know, I I tell you my example, right? I work from home. I don't like to go to office, right? Um, I don't like to work in a big space because I mean it's good to observe your employees at times. You go and meet them, but at times I like quiet place because I don't like people gossiping at work. I hate it. I hate to the core. Right? You're there at work to work. You can talk about, uh, you know, you can be about, I don't really want it to, things at the lunchtime, right? But not at the work time. Um, and I'm flexible, right? I like people to work in their own way, right? But I hate this chit chat and gossiping at work. It's just a productivity killer, right? You can do that in your spare time. Nobody says anything about it. But when you are employed to work, because think about this, right? If I go and tell you, right, okay, you didn't work 8 hours, can I cut your pay? Because you didn't work 8 hours, right? That's your contract says. But every employer has the best interest of an employee, and most employees don't do that, right? But at the same time, it's very important for employees to not to take advantage of it, right? Okay, I understand that sometimes you work 5 hours because of whatever reason, that's fine. And sometimes you work 8 hours, right? That's fine, right? I mean, if as you know, I'm very flexible, right? I don't care if you come to work at 10 in the morning or you work whatever time, as long as your project is done on time. That's all I care. But that being said, I will not appreciate someone spending the whole day talking and not doing anything, right? That's not really acceptable to me. I mean, it's not acceptable to anybody, anywhere. I go and work for Google, right? You spend a whole day talking, and your manager will say, "Hey, I appreciate the fact like you like to talk, but are you planning on doing some work today or no?" So yeah, and most people, they work, right? I mean, I'm not saying I'm just giving an extreme example of it. People who don't really work. I mean, I would say 98% of the time, people are very focused. They get theirs done, right? No problem with that. It's just the 2% out there, right, who just don't do anything. Because the reason why they don't do anything, because they're, first of all, they're not motivated to be in the job. They are in the wrong job at the because they came to the profession thinking, oh, it's easy, they can make a lot of money, someone else is doing it. And those people don't really stay longer because someone will eventually fire them. It often happens in every field. Doesn't matter IT, doesn't matter in a civil engineering field, doesn't matter in a medicine. If you're I mean medicine. Oh my goodness, I would not like to go to a doctor who's not passionate, who just got the degree for the sake of it. Oh heck no. Let's skip the medicine out of it. Right? That's a life threatening. That's a critical issue for me. Same goes for the software though, right? If, why would you use, let's say, medical software, coded by somebody? Let's say, why would you want to use a MRI machine uh, programmed by someone who has no passion for technology? That's gonna give a very bad result, right? So you got to be wary of that as well, right? So no, I'm just sorry. I just digressed, but I just thought, right, just to mention about a few things because it's just around the workspace and the work culture. So your the way you conduct your interview will get impacted based on that. Okay. And also, some people like to take notes along with audio recording, which is great. I love to take notes. And I also like to record the conversation, which so that I can play back later. Sometimes I'll miss writing certain things, and my handwriting sucks, but that's besides the point. So that's why I often prefer to record it. I can replay it, and I can listen to the conversation again and again, right? To figure out, oh, okay, that person is talking about this. Okay, I think that's the pain point. So conversation is a raw data. Okay, now to make it meaningful and to gather meaningful information from the data, it's better to record the conversation, in my opinion. But that's case by case, right? And depends upon if someone really wants you to record that conversation, right? You always need to take permission before you do that. So yeah, that's pretty much I wanted to talk about collective data. It's an interesting topic, right? Because you might have done that before, or you might be interested to do that. So think about it, right? And there's always I covered few scenarios, right? And Salesforce often talk about few scenarios, but that doesn't mean that you can't add your own scenarios, which are being and you which might be better for you, or you might have done that so many times. You think, okay, I don't need any more of this stuff, right? I can do in my own way. That's great. I'm just talking about few scenarios which you can use, but it's not limited to these options, right? You can add your own stuff to it, right? Whichever works for you, as long as it works for you, as well as the people who are taking part in that discussion, right? That being said, I hope you guys have an amazing Thursday. Adios.